Colby Taylor from Wyoming commits, got a big-time cornerback with lots of potential. It's the Locked On Vanderbilt podcast on the Locked On Network. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome into episode 2 of the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, today's episode is presented by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team for faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Well, it appears that Vandy is making some noise in the portal after all the problems they had early on. They're starting to finally get some positive momentum. 6'4" cornerback Colby Taylor from Wyoming commits to Vanderbilt today. So that was some big news in the portal, much needed big news, especially defensively. He comes in with 29 tackles, 7 pass breakups, and really, honestly, he's more of a physical project. But let's not forget that now Clark Lea's calling the defense. Does that change things? Well, we shall see. I mean, his scheme, he should fit the scheme a little bit. I mean, anytime you get a 6'4" cornerback, I mean, you can't coach that kind of range. You know, you can't. He's very athletic. He is, he's somebody that's going to make the play he's just physically imposing, just looking over there. I know as an offensive coordinator that if I'm trying to game plan for somebody like Colby Taylor, I'm maybe thinking twice about going over there. He's just so long. He's so rangy. Unfortunately, I don't think his stats tell the whole story. I think when you look at his stats and you say, okay, just 29 tackles and 7 pass breakups, doesn't seem like he's very physical, doesn't seem like he gets his hands on the ball very much. But we don't really – well, I mean, you can know by watching Wyoming football, but I honestly have not. I'm not going to watch tons and tons of game tape, but from what I've seen, he moves very, very well. And I think that Clark Lea is willing to take a risk on this physical project. Now, this is, like I said, it's going to be a physical project. So I'm excited about this. You add him with Fontenot, and I think it's a really good duo. I think it's a really good physical duo. I think I think what we have defensively in the backfield, I think you've got a safety that's going to play and fill the run, and I think you've got a corner that can cover a lot of ground and can kind of just eat up space out there with Colby Taylor out of Wyoming. So that's your latest portal addition. I think it's exciting for Vanderbilt because they've needed some good news. Clark Lea, the staff, the team, you lose a whole bunch, and just the shot in the arm for the program that you get when you hear some news like this that, hey, we're getting better. And that's the key. Now, with a guy like Colby Taylor, with the stats the way they are, with a lot of the unknowns that you have, is it a risk? Well, absolutely. Anytime you take somebody in the portal, it's always a risk. Injuries, attitude problems, things like that, but he seems to be a good fit for Vandy. And Vandy, honestly, at 2-10, you have to take a few chances wherever you can, because if you don't, you're going to be left out. Well, actually, Clark Lea is going to be in a defensive coordinator role next year somewhere if he doesn't get this thing right. So I think you have to take a chance, and taking a chance on a 6'4" corner that can move pretty well and that could disrupt a few things in the passing game, I think is extremely, extremely valuable. So very, very big get for literally and figuratively for Vanderbilt with Colby Taylor out of Wyoming. Again, 29 tackles, 7 pass breakups, no interceptions. But I think he had some limited playing time, injuries. I think there's some other things that possibly could have happened, but I think there's some good upside here with Taylor, and I think he can fit right in. If there's somebody that can hopefully develop him, I think Clark Lea, again, talked yesterday about the little ray of hope that the portal does bring to your team when you do get new guys, and getting a 6'4" corner does add a little bit of that false, well, not false hope, but adds a little bit of that hope to, okay, well, now we got some pieces on the back end. We should be able to cover a little bit. We should be able to play the run with the back end, and it allows us to have some flexibility on the front end with your linebackers and defensive line. So very, very exciting. So congratulations on that. Colby Taylor is the newest Vanderbilt Commodore. Speaking of new Commodores, we spotlight now Zaylen Wood. He's a defensive lineman from right down the road in Murfreesboro, MTSU. He was a complete disruptor, and that's the best way to describe him. He disrupts things. He recorded 16 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 hurries, a forced fumble, and 4 tackles for loss last season. He had 6.5 sacks in 2022. He had 1 in the bowl game and 2 against Miami. So in case you're thinking he's feasting on the little sisters of the poor, he is absolutely not. So very, very, very good for the defensive line as well. You need somebody, like when you watch him play, he just kind of jumps out at you. He has some big play potential. Now, the reason why defensive linemen's tackles aren't really all that high is because a lot of times especially those interior guys, they're eating up double teams. They are slanting, stunting, disrupting blocking schemes, doing things like that. But he has a knack for finding the football. He has a knack for making a lot of plays. He has a knack for getting after the quarterback. So that's something that this Vanderbilt team desperately needs. They need a spark on defense. So you got CJ Taylor, who elected to come back. He was their big play defensive back last year, had what should have been a pick 6 against Georgia, but got absolutely destroyed by Carson Beck on his way to the end zone. And, he seems to be the defensive leader there. That you're expecting to have a lot of leadership roles and a lot of, he's going to be the one he's got a lot of responsibility is what I'm trying to say. Being the guy who's going to push this defense, get them lined up right, get them properly motivated. And it helps when you have a really big dude on the other side that makes things physically imposing. You got a safety that comes down and will knock your teeth out. You've got a defensive lineman that is really disruptive in there. Again, he's got a knack for taking the ball away. He's got a knack for getting after the quarterback. Had 3 sacks this year, 6.5. So in his career at MTSU, 9.5 sacks. He had a really good game against Miami. He also had a pick 6. I don't know if I mentioned that, but he batted a ball up in the air and picked it and ran it back for the touchdown. So again, big playability from an interior defensive lineman. That's what you want. That's what you need. And if you're going to be competitive in this league, you got to have disruptors at that position, especially that Zaylen Wood's coming in. See, Georgia had that with Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. They did not have that. And there were a lot of games where you saw the potential of teams being able to successfully run against them. You finally saw Alabama break through and do that in the SEC championship. It's because that interior defensive line for Georgia could not make the play. They could not disrupt the quarterback. Vanderbilt oftentimes could not disrupt the quarterback. And then when they did, when they had a little bit of success, you couldn't, it almost seemed like they had no depth. So they're going to have to build some quality depth too, and that's between high school recruiting and college. So very, very exciting there with the 2 pickups. So 3 big defensive pieces for Vanderbilt so far in this portal season. Still looking for that quarterback, still looking for those playmakers on the outside, still looking for somebody to turn and hand the ball off to as well. Lost a bunch of that. And also, probably more importantly, or most importantly, still looking for a little bit of beef up front on the offensive side of the ball. So again, we'll talk about quarterbacks here in the next segment. We're going to break down Matthew Sluka and how he could impact the portal. We're going to look at a possible name for the offensive coordinator spot. Again, it's exciting if we were to land this guy that I'm going to talk about, would be exciting, would be a great fit for the current quarterback target that we're about to break down a little bit as well. So need some juice on the offensive side of the ball this in the portal season. That's got to be next. That's got to be coming soon. You get 3 big defensive pieces. Now it's time for the offense to strike a little bit, and we'll see kind of how that goes. Next we're going to talk about, again, Matthew Sluka and a possibility at offensive coordinator that would make Matthew Sluka almost a home run get. We'll break that down in just 1 second. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. That's impressive, right? So LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to make that hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. That's such a good deal. That's such a good deal for that. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, do it. All right, welcome back. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. When you finish over here, go check out our people at not only Locked On Ole Miss. Stephen Willis does a tremendous job on that show. You should check him out, but check our guys out on Locked On SEC as well. Another phenomenal show. This whole SEC network is a very, very solid network. Zach Blackerby holding down the Auburn fort as well. And I'm going to start to kind of get to know our host within this conference so that I can kind of get a feel of what shows are good and whatnot. So go check them out. Steve does a tremendous job. Locked On SEC does a tremendous job. Locked On Auburn. If you want to hear some portal news, they're apparently doing some things in the portal as well. Quarterback is a big ticket item. Well, just about every year, but even so, this year you've got Dylan Gabriel in the portal. Don't know where he's going to end up. Have an inkling he's going to end up at Oregon. I'll tell you where he's not going to be is Vanderbilt. We talked about Hank Bachmeier. Well, he's since committed to Wake Forest, so he's off the table. I talked briefly about Riley Leonard, and I was thinking he was going to go to Notre Dame. I said from the get-go that Vandy had no shot. It would be phenomenal if we got him, but knowing that there was no shot really. So that shot has been that 0% chance has been confirmed. He is committed to Notre Dame. So Riley Leonard will be going and replacing Sam Hartman at Notre Dame. That's a big get for Marcus Freeman. So exciting news if you're an Irish fan. Exciting news if you're a Wake Forest fan. I think Bachmeier is actually pretty good. Probably got a bad rap at Louisiana Tech, but I think he's pretty good. So let's look at what the biggest need at the quarterback position for Vandy. This addition will also hinge on hiring the right offensive coordinator. We talked about it yesterday with Cole Snyder. He's basing his whole decision on if Vandy lands the right offensive coordinator. Well, Joe Sloan, he threw his terms out there, 3 years, $1 million per is kind of his asking price. And if Vandy wants to hire him, that's about what it's going to take, maybe even a little bit more, because it is, the trickiest thing about this offensive coordinator hire is that the situation isn't exactly tempting. I know Vandy's a great place. Nashville's a phenomenal place to live. You're an SEC offensive coordinator. But if you think about some of the things surrounding this position, you have a coach that is on a seat that is burning hot, red hot, right? A lot of people were calling for Clark Lea. So a lot of offensive coordinators are probably going to wait this one out. So guys like Joe Sloan, guys that would probably cost in the millions, are probably holding off, unfortunately, because they are unsure what's going to happen with Clark Lea, and they don't want to jump for just 1 year and get out of whatever situation they were in and almost hurt their chances of landing something bigger because they took a chance with Vandy and ended up being fired after the next season because you weren't successful. So go to LinkedIn Jobs, Locked On College, right there. All right, so it's going to all hinge on that. So a quarterback target that could get real interesting. All right, depending on what the hire is. Now, this is going to be solely dependent on the hire, but it's going to be Matthew Sluka from Holy Cross. His head coach just went to James Madison. That could be a destination for him. But he's in the portal now. I presume it's because his head coach left, and he wants to see if he can make the jump to FBS and major Power 5. So that will be interesting. So keep that name in the back of your pocket, right? Keep that name in your back pocket for just 1 second, okay? Because I'm going to jump back to – so I know it seems like I'm jumping back and forth here, but I'm going to jump back to the offensive coordinator spot, okay? A name that I've read about, a name that I think would be a absolute home run if he's willing to come. Now, I would understand if he's not. If he would take a bigger job with like somebody like Chris Kleiman at Kansas State, or if he just stayed one more year at Liberty with Jamie Chadwell and then jumped from there to what's presumably a better position, which you don't really know what positions are good. I mean, it's pretty much a gamble, but some places are more of a gamble than others. I think Vanderbilt's a huge risk, but somebody like Willie Korn, I think, could come in and really kind of bring a jolt of energy into this offense because of the scheme that he runs. I think would be something that Vandy would need to explore. I've always said this. I've said this on SEC After Dark. By the way, I'm on SEC After Dark. Find me there as well with Stephen Willis, Jeb Beecham, and Jake Thomas. I've said on there, I've told anyone that's ever listened to me that what Vanderbilt needs to do is quit trying to go with the trend on offense and try to find something that's different. Now, I'm not saying go to like Army and go to the Army scheme of triple option and stuff like that. I'm not saying go to that scheme. What I'm saying is find something that not a lot of people do. What made Mississippi State successful under Mike Leach was the fact that they ran air raid, and he's the inventor of the air raid. So of course he's going to probably be the best at implementing it. It's different. It's a different thing you have to defend. And it made them as successful as they can be, right? But somebody like Willie Korn, if you watch Liberty, they run that Coastal Carolina, because Jamie Chadwell triple option scheme, which is phenomenal. It's like a spread triple. They have some midline concepts. They move people all around. They formation you. They have some funky formations. They have a lot of neat stuff that they do. And if Willie Korn takes his job, I will break this thing down and hopefully have him on this show to talk to him about some things. But Willie Korn is a very interesting name. But what Willie Korn would need if he took this job is somebody like Matthew Sluka. Now, when you watch Matthew Sluka play, he is electric. He jumps off the page at you. He's a true dual threat guy from Holy Cross. And he is, like I said, he comes from an electric scheme. He is the thing that makes that thing go. He's a great athlete. He's a great runner. I talk about one of my favorite things to talk about. You'll probably hear this and you'll probably say, oh, that's just Corey's buzzword. It's the +1 quarterback run game, right? And I think for the new age quarterback, if you can be effective enough, not a force, not like, not somebody that's a home, you don't have to be a home run hitter, but you can't be a non-factor either, right? You can be effective enough for teams to have to take you seriously in the quarterback run game, which is quarterback counters, jet read, power read, zone read, which you're coming out the back door, speed option, and then, of course, affect the game in the RPO realm as well. And I think that with Coastal Carolina, they do a great job of blending triple option schemes, spread option, zone option schemes, and RPO into their offense to give them a really, really explosive offense. And I think if Willie Corn were to get this job, I think he's somebody that could really come in and really make some noise with a guy like Matthew Sluka or even a guy like Cole Snyder, as we talked about yesterday. But he needs that dual threat guy. Maybe Grayson McCall. That's another name that would follow suit if Willie Corn were to come to Vanderbilt. Grayson McCall, jump in the SEC, get back with his old offensive coordinator from his days at Coastal Carolina. Maybe that'd be a great fit. Clark Lea, if you're listening to this, please make that happen, right? But going back to Sluka, he can make most of your throws. He has really good playmaking ability, which really just translates to he can make something out of nothing. He can create, right? Play breaks down. He can create, hit a guy on the run. He can throw some passes in some tight windows. He can run, escape, all that good stuff. He can make it happen. If you need a big play, I think he's clutch enough to make that happen. Now, what worries me a little bit is his arm strength. I don't know for 100% certain. I would have to, again, break down some game film to kind of really see. But looking at his highlight reel, it doesn't look like there's a ton of power on his arm. So overall arm strength and being able to push the ball to the sidelines, being able to push the ball, being able to drive the ball into the seam in between two safeties, things like that you need to be able to do in this league because it's the closest thing you're going to get to the NFL. So I don't know that he can make some of these big league throws because he just can't drive the ball like some of these other guys because he doesn't have a powerful arm. So, and if he can't make those deep throws, if he can't make those hole shots, those seam shots, about 15, 20 yards down the field, defenses are going to sit and they're going to drive on everything short, and it's going to make him relatively ineffective. So that's something that I would love to see more of. And if Matthew Sluka ends up being a Vanderbilt commit, we will, of course, or I will, of course, break him down. I'm going to work on getting some guests here in the near future. This is only episode 2. So in due time, I will have some guests. All right. This would also be a fit-based edition. So if you get a pro-style guy coming in with a dual-threat quarterback, I just don't think it's a good match scheme-wise. If you end up having to hire Brian Ferentz, nobody's a good scheme fit. So, again, it will be fit-based, and it will be making sure that he fits into your scheme the way you want him to. So up next, we'll talk a little hoops when we come back. What's going on with the men's program? Big shout out to the women's program. But we're going to talk hoops next. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. And I can speak from experience on FanDuel. One of my favorite things to play are those touchdown props, anytime touchdowns. I play Dynasty Fantasy Football, so shout out to Locked On Dynasty. I try to play a lot of my opponents in anytime touchdowns so that if they score, I win. Because if they score, I'm probably going to lose anyway, so I need to win something. So I like to go to FanDuel and play those. I'll hit like a 3-leg parlay with like 2 anytime touchdowns and a money line bet, and a lot of times those are same game parlays as well. So you can play a lot of that fun stuff at FanDuel.com. But what you need to do in order to have all of this fun is you need to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon as we finish this NFL season, and as we come down the home stretch of your fantasy season, as we come down the home stretch of the NFL season. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get your $150 Gets you $150 in bonus bets with a winning $5 money line bet. I might cancel the show. I might go over there right now. I can't cancel the show. It's third segment. So let's get into it, right? So, back. We're going to wrap up today's show with a little bit of basketball talk. I know you're thinking, my gosh, you're going to interrupt all this portal talk with basketball? Vandy basketball? Yeah, Vandy basketball. You know why? Because the women's team is having a great season. The men's team is broken. The women are rolling. So first and foremost, shout out to the women's team. They end their non-conference slate with only one loss and a huge road win at Butler. Butler, Hinkle Fieldhouse, legendary Hinkle Fieldhouse. All right. Defense ruled the game. 24 turnovers. They won 50 to 51-39 to finish out their non-conference. So they go into conference slate. They're ranked. They only have one loss. Their loss was to NC State. And it's impressive, right? Because when you watch this team, when you see this team and you look at the stat lines too, like if you're a box score person, you can't watch basketball all the time. They play complete basketball, right? And they play really good complementary basketball. And what do I mean by complementary basketball? The main thing with basketball is that it's a constant flow of filling in gaps, right? You struggle here. Well, this has to compensate. And when this doesn't compensate, things usually get ugly. And if you're cold on the offensive side of the ball, you better be playing defense and getting rebounds, and also forcing turnovers and forcing them into mental breakdowns and things like that. So when you do that, which we did against Butler, then you're going to have a lot of success. And this women's team has been having a lot of success so far. So I'm excited to see kind of what the conference slate brings. This is a tough conference now. You have South Carolina with Dawn Staley. You have LSU with Angel Reese and Kim Mulkey as the head coach, and you have a really loaded LSU team. They had that girl from LSU. I can't remember her name to save my life, but they have her as well. So this is going to be a tough conference slate for Vandy on the women's side. On the men's side, I think every game is tough. So before we get into that, though, shout out to the women and best of luck in the conference slate. This is if you watch women's basketball at all, this is a really, really good team to watch, and this is somebody that could make some noise in March. So stay tuned to the Vanderbilt women. All right, now to the men. Right, yeah, they've had their struggles. The men's team, Coach Stackhouse, they're on the struggle bus. They're driving the struggle bus. They're driving it fast, right? And the main issues, right? Cohesion, which I think is on Coach Stackhouse, honestly. He doesn't have those guys ready to play. I don't know what they're doing. Well, I mean, I hate to criticize coaching because I'm a coach. I'm a high school coach. I coach football. So I'm not usually one to jump on, it's coach's fault. Get a new coach. Fire the coach. But sometimes you know it's time, right? Like with Derek Mason, you knew it was time. With Bryce Drew, you knew it was time. With James Franklin, he knew it was time, so he got out. But when you look at coaches, Mark Richt at Georgia, very successful. One of the most successful coaches in program history outside of winning a national championship for Vince Dooley. It was time, right? They all have that look where it's just you can see into their soul, and it's just time. And for Jerry Stackhouse, I think it's just time. I think it's time. I just don't think these guys are responding to his message. I don't think that they're coming through with what needs to happen. They're losing at the free throw line. They're getting crushed on the boards. They're throwing away points. So it's going to be tough sledding for them. They've got to find ways to score the basketball. I'm quickly running out of time. I gave all my shout outs to the women's team, which deservedly so. So we'll talk about possible schemes that they can employ, things like that. So that's going to do it for us here at Locked On Vandy Podcast. So like and subscribe, hit the bell notification for more Vandy content. I am Corey Burton, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. And as always, anchor down.